James Simmons. He's doing an awful lot of work upstreaming Lustre into the Linux client. Ladies and gentlemen, this time with the right set of slides, James Simmons.
Hello, I'm going to talk about where we're at for the Upstream client and how it's looking and where we're going. And the theme this year is convergence. So what we've done since the last LUG? Well, we've done a lot of cleanups, styles. We pretty much kept the libcfs and lnet up to sync with what the latest stuff is. The biggest change you probably saw if you saw the patches flying around is that we've moved from the 2.5 support from last LUG to actually a pre-2.9 version actually upstream. So that's a huge step forward. In fact, it's reaching reached the level now that there are actually some really brave souls that are running this in production. So that was actually a good positive sign. So. And as we develop Lustre and it's been cleaning up, now we're getting to the point where it's becoming more clear what we have to do to actually leave staging and becoming a proper Linux file system. So, and in the process of trying to do this, we approached Alviro and this winter and discussed with him about leaving, and we talked with Greg as well. So we're actually starting to get reviews on the Upstream client and starting to get feedback about what it is. It's a gradual process because, well, anyone who's looked at the Lustre code knows that it's not the easiest thing, and like when Alviro looked at the code, he's like, I don't understand it. So there are benefits to actually doing this work. Most people don't realize. It's kind of like one of these things off the side. It's kind of like that cousin you have at the family picnic that everybody ignores, but it's actually the important cousin. He knows all the family secrets. So the perks that we have is that we get the work for supporting newer kernels is done, and this is actually starting to be flowing back into the OpenSFS branch. The other thing that it's a big deal that we've actually banged our head on and is extremely painful is the support of the Mellanox OFED stack. So they use the latest stuff upstream. I mean, it is bleeding edge, and the InfiniBand API has undergone drastic changes, and which has caused much pain, and we're still working out some of the issues because supporting older kernels, we're breaking the Mellanox 4 driver while trying to support Mellanox 5. So the other thing which is surprising is even though we get these fixes, we get these what you would think of janitor fixes, every once in a while we get a gem in there that actually fixes a real problem. And the other thing that was worked on during this cycle is that we've been trying to get the staging tree to be actually to test it. So we now have it in Garrett. You can submit patches. Actually, Doug and some of his Mellanox updates for the driver and stuff and the InfiniBand upstream, he did it in upstaging and our staging tree in Garrett first, and then submitted it as we were testing it. So, of course, the upstream client isn't perfect. There's still bugs in there. There's a couple test failures, so we've been analyzing it. And of course, we have to make sure it's become less and less of an issue, but the functionality is actually, because it's now up to almost a 2.9, there's less issues. It used to be that the test suite would fail drastically because there was all these things missing, but that's actually becoming less. So the missing piece now, what we want to do, and we discussed this at Developer Day, was how to automate the process so when people submit. So one of the greatest challenges, believe it or not, in the upstream client is regular users submitting really bad patches, and they get in, and they have really caused a lot of headaches. So we want to make sure that we catch those before they go in. So the reverse has also been happening, as I was mentioning, to the OpenSFS branch. So we've had, so the process of how things are done is the upstream client isn't really reviewed to the same extent as the Intel branch. So the process is when we want to do something to clean up the upstream client, it goes into master, the OpenSFS branch, it gets reviewed, reworked, and then it goes the other way. So that's how we've been doing that. I mentioned we are up to, there's patches to, at the time I wrote these slides, up to 4.9. Actually, there's patches outstanding up to 4.10. So all you Ubuntu 17 fans can run your Lustre clients. So I was hoping to actually sync it up to 4.12 RC something before the release, but I don't think that's going to happen. We were attempting to do the backport of the SysFS stuff. I've done a lot of the backporting stuff. There was way too many bugs to introduce for 2.10, so we've been trying to fix it up. And that way, so that's going to feed back into the upstream client, those fixes. The other thing that has been an ongoing project, that has been a big project, is the 64-bit time issues. So the Linux kernel, so to make it function beyond the 2038 bug, all the timestamps have been moved from 32-bit to 64-bit. So we've been moving to that direction as well. And the benefit of this is also we're moving away from Jiffy use. So if anyone knows, there's an internal mechanism to keep track of a tick inside the kernel. Well, Jiffies are dependent on the configuration of the system. They're not really independent of real time. So we've been looking to move to K-time, which is nanosecond precision that's not dependent on the platform. And we're looking at time 64 seconds resolution as well. So lots of strings, as you saw for 2.10. There were a lot of little things that on the side, if you look at the chart, there's these slivers. Those are actually backports from the upstream client for actual fixes that went in. So this was the first release where we saw a whole bunch of stuff go in. So, and the good news is that a lot of these changes that have been upstreamed are actually in 2.10. So a good chunk of that work has been completed. So the other thing, so what needs to be completed yet? So one of the biggest eyesores in the upstream client, if you look at the header paths in the files, this makes it look very stagey. So this is one of the big complaints. It's not a functionality thing, but it bothers the maintainers upstream. So we've been working on, there's been 2 tickets that have been open for 5 years on this topic. So you're thinking 5 years is a long time. Well, the reason for that is because this stuff, changing it touches everything. We're talking tools, we're talking all the kernel code. It's all over the place, the map. It changes the behavior. So we have to make sure we don't break anything. So there's 2 sets of headers that we've been working on. One is the general Lustre UAPI headers. They're now compliant. That work, the patches, there's only 2 patches left outstanding. LNet and libcfs also have to become UAPI compliant, but we've cleaned up those headers to a large extent. So we don't need the libcfs headers anymore in userland. That's gone. Those days are gone finally. So that's where we're at, and so there will be 1 patch left for 6245, and we're done with that. And we can push that all upstream. That's done. The other thing is the InfiniBand support. So all the Mellanox 4 headaches that everyone's experiencing, we're experiencing upstream as well. So we've been doing a lot of things to go into changes into both and resolving all the issues. Things that I wish could have been done but didn't get done. One is, so anyone ever used DocBook before? Okay. Well, it's been deprecated. There's now a new documentation format, and it's called Sphinx, and they want it all ported over to this format. So another issue that's an eyesore is we use the Linux link list API in userland for LNet self-tests. That's one of the requirements. And of course, we're going to do traceport. We're going to look at moving all the Lustre debug to the trace event infrastructure that Linux offers. So what needs to be done in staging? Well, we have still some check patch cleanups. So that's a big one. But it's actually a lot less. In fact, if you watch the mailing list, you'll notice that there's a lot less patches from people submitting these janitor cleanups. It's actually quieted down actually a lot. So that's actually a good thing. That's a good sign, actually. The other thing is that we're going to continue syncing up the upstream client to the latest. So the next milestone is to get to a 2.10 version. So right now, the upstream client is like a mutation. Like I said, it's that special cousin you have. It's because of the way patches are landed, they're not landed in order as master as the OpenSFS branches. So they're landed in such a way that if one gets rejected, at least the majority get in, and there's the minimization of dependencies. So only a couple patches are missing for 2.8, most of 2.9 is, and then there's some 2.10 in there actually. But in the end goal, we want to get at least to a 2.10 version, and then become more flexible on the features being added, because they hate our out-of-source tree more than they hate our upstream client. And as I said, we want to merge in the UAPI header cleanups. We want to fix up the linked list APIs being used, so LNet self-test. And I think NodeMap also does some of that stuff, and that needs to be cleaned up. The other thing that's a big problem is we have the super ioctl method. Normally you have ioctls spread through each of these individual modules and we have like this indirect where we do these ioctls, and then they go all the way to the OBD class, the core center, and it's handled there. And they don't like that redirection. And there's also some other stuff. If you've ever looked at like the wrappers, the OBD config wrappers and stuff, there's for classes, and you'll see there's these incredible wrappers that lead to some pointer that you don't know what it is. And these are some of the headaches that it gives them. So these are some of the things that we need to clean up still. And of course, we're going to migrate the debugging to tracepoint, and the big thing that's going to happen is now that it's starting to get into the process where it's being reviewed to leave staging, we're going to get feedback. And that feedback, we don't know what the impact is going to be on Lustre, actually. We don't know what they're going to think or what they want to see for design changes. And some of it will be pushed back. I know I've heard people say LNet should use like the netlink API, but that would be a total rewrite of LNet, and that wouldn't be profitable to us, actually. So what do we do once all that's done? We hurt ourselves more. Yeah, so what we want to do is look to the next stage, and that is the server stuff. So but the good news is that everything we do on the client is done on the server stuff, so it will be a lot less painful to actually move that up. We will not be stuck in the staging tree for 4 years or 5 years or whatever it will end up being. So to do that, we need to have patchless server support. And as we were discussing, we've been doing a lot of things to work with that. We have one patch that's a real blocker. We're working on the LDiskFS module so it can work with patched and unpatched kernels without rebuilding. Once we have that complete, we can probably drop any patches that are not critical. There's like one rel patch that is critical until they release a rel 7. We have all these LDiskFS patches. I don't know what the progression has been to push that upstream, but if we could like move that, and I have seen some work actually. Since I've been involved in the upstream client, I have actually been CC'd on like the extent 4 mailing list, which I was surprised by. But yeah, so that's the next thing. And also LDiskFS support. We have it up to 4.4. So this is making life easier for us. We're actually, now that we're supporting distributions that follow closer to the upstream client. And so my talk wasn't too extensive. Because this year it wasn't like, oh no, we're going to get deleted. This was actually another really good year. We got a lot done. We prepared a lot of stuff, and we are preparing a lot of stuff to be merged upstream, such as the trace events and all the header cleanups. And we're going to be looking at hopefully leaving staging within the next, year time frame. Next year, I'm hoping to come up here and talk about being out of staging. So the things that just need, there's some things missing from the Upstream, but most of it's done porting. I have my own Upstream client that I run locally that has like most of the patches in to match master. So the convergence is complete, the API stuff is complete. And the good news, which is incredible, and I have to ask, who here is brave enough to use the Upstream client in their systems? Has anyone done that? Are you afraid to say something? Nope. I figured no one would be here brave enough. But I'm curious if anyone knows anyone who's using this. I would love to talk to them. And like I said, the other thing is it's starting to undergo code review, and we're getting feedback and stuff. So, and that's it.
Just a quick comment on the LDiskFS work. So there's actually, for quite a while, we were carrying some features that, weren't super attractive to Upstream ext4. And so, it had been static for quite a while. More recently, actually, Seagate has been doing some work. And so the multi-level H tree actually was accepted and then had a tiny bug right before the feature freeze, and so it got yanked out, but it'll be into the 4.13 kernel. And there's a good prospect for the large extended attributes feature also going upstream. Google has become interested in large extended attributes, and so they're going to be taking that, and it'll be fully compatible with what we have in our tree for these years. And then I think the final big feature that we have, which is a data and directory entry, there's work underway to get that upstream as well. And so I think we'll be largely clear of big feature patches. We'll still have to carry, a couple of patches just to do things like exporting APIs, but those ones are relatively simple. And, we always have, a couple of bug fix patches because they don't, get into the distro in a timely manner. But, the prospect for, reducing the LDiskFS patch series significantly is, pretty close.
Yeah, so my question, you seem very positive on being able to leave staging. So, kernel maintainers are notoriously difficult. Do you see...
I know, I work with them.
Do you see the reviews as mostly being cosmetic requests, or do you think there will be some difficulty in, some kind of request that's like not going to be feasible?
Actually, it is a combination of both, actually. So the review process is like a two-stage process. So there's the the minimum to get out of staging, which is all these style and things like that. But then there are the architectural issues, and those are the things that are also being looked at. And we have people like Alviro who are looking at it and figuring out, are there architectural issues? Why do you do this? So that's why I'm saying by next slug, I'm optimistic over a year period, because Lustre as it is today upstream, minus the couple check patch and the UAPI headers, once that goes in, it's pretty much ready for style issues to go out. So the next hurdle is the architectural issues. So that's why I'm positive. It's the grunt work and the things that they didn't like initially are mostly gone.
Any other questions?
Yeah.